Welcome to Talking Halos. This is Derek Ciapola with my co-host, my partners in crime, Jared Timms and Nate Green. And it's been a while. We actually recorded last week, but somehow, some way, the recordings went, so we didn't get a chance to get it out before I went on vacation. Now I'm back, and these guys are back, and we're all here, and we have some things we want to talk about. First things first, Jared and Nate. Going to Jared first. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. Busy as always, baseball season, but yeah, not doing too bad.
Nate?
I'm still pumped that SEMO knocked off Arkansas last week. They didn't knock off K-State, but we still knocked off Arkansas. So that's a good one. That's a big win.
You're living the dream. SEMO, knock it off. Arkansas. Okay. Um, want to address a couple of things from our last show, which was a while ago, but want to make sure we address it. And replies we got were, okay, guys, you're complaining, you're not giving us analysis. So who are 5 people that you would want to see Paramanazzi replaced with? And we gave one. We'll repeat that. We'll repeat that. Okay, 5. So I'll start it off. The one that I loved, I'm going to steal what Nate said. That was John Daniels. He was from the Indians front office for a while. Went to the Rangers. Has been on the game for a long time. Does well everywhere he goes. Great pick for the Angels to go after John Daniels. You'll notice a theme, by the way, as these guys talk. Nate, Jared, you guys had a bunch of other names. Who you got?
Well, if you talk about John Daniels, Texas Rangers blueprint of what they did last year was basically all John Daniels. I mean, yeah, Chris Young gets all the credit, but John Daniels, that roster is 98% him. Chris Young made a couple changes, bringing back Scherzer at the deadline, some things like that. But for the most part, that roster was all John Daniels. So he's obviously number one on my list. Number two, Jared will have this guy on his list as well, but it's Josh Burns, the third in control with the Dodgers, I believe. His technical term is assistant GM, but I believe he's third in control there. Um, Dodgers seem to be doing things right. They seem to be getting guys in, and they seem to develop really well, so it makes sense. He's also been a general manager before, which is another big check mark for us, and he's had success. So that's a big one for me. Number three is Dayton Moore. I think Dayton Moore, if you give him some money, I think he will be able to spend it wisely. We've seen he's been able to build up a farm system in Kansas City. He was part of a World Series team. Again, another guy who's been a part of some really good organizations. The thing about him, he was able to do it with no money, and we talk about this all the time. Artie always is in the top 10 in payroll. So give a guy who hasn't been given a lot of money, give him a little bit of money on top of the development that he did in Kansas City. I think that could be a really, really good get for the Angels. And then the last two are a little controversial for me. I think Kim did a pretty good job with Miami. I don't think she drafts well. I think that's one of Perry's things that, maybe some people say he drafts well, some people say he doesn't draft well. It just depends. But I think Kim would need someone just like Perry does, a president of baseball ops, someone to kind of um, help her with her drafting, because she does a really good job of bringing in free agents. She did a really good job of putting a good major league roster on the field. But if you look at her drafts and the guys that she ended up getting, it looks to be a big miss in most of her drafts so far. And then the last guy for me is Neil Huntington. He was with Pittsburgh again. I'm looking at teams that were able to win with no money. He was part of that quote unquote dynasty that the Pirates built, where they were in the playoffs 4 or 5 years in a row, which would be a dream for the Angels. You look at what he did with his drafting and building a roster around Andrew McCutchen. I thought he did a pretty good job there. And yeah, he was given a lot of leash, but I mean, when you're in an organization that doesn't win very often, and he was able to win a lot of games. Maybe they weren't able to win the World Series, but they didn't spend a lot of money. So I think those 5 would make sense for the Angels. All of them have prior general manager experience. All of them have been successful. All of them have been to the playoffs, I believe, as well. So,
Jared.
I got 4 guys. Yeah, Nate. I mean, you mentioned Josh Burns. That's been my number one guy
yep.
for a couple of years now. I really like what Josh Burns is doing out there in LA. I mean, with everything. So Josh Burns, number one. Number two, another guy that the Angels actually got from the Dodgers. He's with the Angels now. Brian Parker, head of international scouting. I absolutely love what Brian's been doing down in the international side of stuff. Been following that like I should be probably with the Angels, but international wise, I think he's been doing a fantastic job, and would love to see what he could do with the big club itself. Two other ones just off the top of my head. Again, I mean, this, it's kind of a crapshoot, but if you're looking experience wise, Theo Epstein would be a lot of fun. Absolutely. I mean, you look what, I mean, you want to talk about breaking curses, and people think the Angels are cursed. They had Theo Epstein broke the two biggest curses in baseball. I mean, why not go try to break a third big curse if you know what I mean? And that would be awesome. And then you can't forget about former players and guys internally. He was somebody that got managerial love, and I think Tim Salmon actually would be a really good GM candidate for the Angels. Somebody who is political in a sense, because you need somebody that is political, well spoken, and he also got a lot of praise the last couple off seasons around being with the players and his experience there. So Tim Salmon, who's been around the org, I don't know if he would ever want to be a general manager, but again, he got managerial love this last before the Angels brought in Ron Washington, and I think Tim Salmon would be a really good fit in that role. So
Just questions here. It's more towards Jared. Just a question, because Nate and I are actually the same page. We both want somebody with experience. I lean towards John Daniels or Drayton Moore. Those are my two favorite guys. You are picking guys who weren't necessarily guys who've been in the job before, like a Tim Salmon, like a Parker. Haven't the Angels been running contrary to that now for a year, running with that for years now? Guys without experience, and look where it's getting them. I mean, can you clarify your stance a little bit?
I mean, I would love to see Theo Epstein. I'd love to see John Daniels. I'd love to see who's got the Phillies job right now. I can't remember his name.
Well,
Dombrowski. I would
Sinful's
have
the
loved.
GM, but then Dombrowski's
I would
the
have loved to see
TOA.
Dombrowski. I would love to see those guys. I think that those guys, however, push Artie too hard, right? Like, I don't think Artie would bring one of those guys in, unfortunately. And I mean, history continues to repeat itself in the Artie Moreno era. I don't think he's ever hired somebody that has had previous GM experience for the reason that he wants some type of control. There's a reason why the Angels don't have a president of baseball operations, because they want control at the top. So yeah, I do go the opposite way of what you guys have said. I put Theo in there because that's a dream scenario for me. I love what Theo does. I think that he builds a very good farm system. I think he makes trades. He understands the game. He can play both the analytical game and also the old school baseball type of game too. So that is my dream wish, is Theo Epstein or John Daniels. I mean, Dombrowski probably isn't available, but somebody that has experience. But if history continues to repeat itself, which it seems like it has, because you look at Tony Reagans didn't have experience, Billy never had experience, Jerry Dipoto didn't have experience, Perry didn't have experience. I mean, that's 4 for 4. I mean, so why
Didn't he
is
bring
something
Bill
like
Stillman in for a minute?
Stoneman came in as Stoneman was a special assistant to the GM to Jerry Dipoto, and when Dipoto left, he just stepped in. And then I mean, even another guy, and let me look up his name for a second. I'll throw it out there if you guys want to talk, because there's an actual name in the Angels system that I think has a really good shot. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. That would be my fifth guy that I think would get a shot, but also doesn't have experience. Well, doesn't have experience to what people know he does have it. He does actually have GM experience. People just don't know it. So give me a second here. I'll get the name of who I think actually will probably get it next if Perry's gone. But yeah, I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I want to, and I know you guys mentioned like there's got to be a shift in mindset last podcast. But as long as Artie's the GM, I just don't, or Artie's the owner, I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I wish it did, but like I don't see it happening.
There overall seems to be this mindset among a few of our listeners that we don't blame Artie. Like we just think it's Perry's fault. And I just want to clarify, that's not our view. Our view is Artie's at fault. He's the leader of the organization, but Perry's not without fault. And after the way things are going, this is where things are looking. So, any other thoughts before I move on, guys? Anything you want to clarify? Anything you want to put out there before we get on to the other topics at hand? All right. So Here's a word from our sponsor. Right back. And you guys may have just seen a cat go by my screen. Okay, Reid Detmers last night in AAA getting annihilated for 7 runs. Also strikes out 8. Got hit around a bit. Nate, starting with you. How do you feel about his return to the minors?
Well, we didn't really get to talk too much about him getting sent down. I know when you really dive into the deeper analytics with Detmers, he's kind of got pretty unlucky with some things this year. Um, it seems like every time the ball gets hit, it's getting finding a hole and getting in for a single or a double or things like that. Like if you look at his expected ERA compared to what his actual ERA was in the big leagues, it's crazy different. If you look at what his expected average on balls in play is compared to what his actual batting average on balls in plays is, it's like crazy different. So I do feel for him, just kind of one of those years where like the pitches just seem to be a little bit up in the zone, and it just seems like everything's finding a hole. Going down to the minor leagues, I think the big thing that people are upset with Reid Detmers is his command. I think he's walked too many people for what people expect of him. They expect him to be a control guy. They expect him to um, pitch to contact and get early outs. And yeah, he'll strike some guys out, but he's going to be around the zone. And he's one of the he's 30th percentile in walk percentage in the major leagues this year, which is not good. It is 9.7% of the time, which is very, very bad. So I personally think the numbers when we're looking at, Detmers he gave up 10 hits, 7 runs, 7 earned in the ballpark that they play in AAA. It's kind of basically playing in Coors on steroids. I look at the walk number, and I think that's a big number to look at. He had 0 walks, 8 Ks. I'm not really worried about the strikeouts. The strikeouts are going to come. We even look back at his no hitter he had. He only struck out 1 or 2 in that game. So that's not the number that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the walks. And I think he's really working on his command and just worrying about attacking the strike zone. And I think he'll probably get 2 more starts in the minors before he gets his call back up. But that's what I'm going to be looking forward to continuing to watch is what does that walk number look like? And is he competitive in the zone, or is he just like, hey, I'm throwing pitches down the middle and it's getting hit? Or is it, hey, I walked 5 or 6? Or is it, hey, you know what? He found something here. Yeah, the numbers don't say it was a good start, but you know what? He's in the zone, and that's like step 1. Step 1 was finding that command to be in the zone. Now step 2 is um, being able to command it in tough pitches to hit, but also be in the zone. So I don't think we can look at this first outing and be like, oh, he sucks for sure. So that's just me.
Sure.
Step back here. Matt Swanson was the name, senior advisor of scouting and personnel for the Angels. Let's go back to what we were just talking about. That was the name I was looking for. To Reid Detmers. I'm not too concerned about the runs given up in AAA at all. I'm a little more concerned about the strikeouts than what Nate is. 8 strikeouts, fantastic. Not really necessarily pitched contact, means we're getting some bad swings and things like that. He gave up 4 home runs. I didn't go back and look. I guess quite a few of them probably on the fastball. That fastball, he changed his release point on that a little bit. His arm angle, I guess, a little bit on the fastball this year, and I think that now being thrown up in the zone is affecting some things. But yeah, I'm it's 8 strikeouts, no walks. It's huge. You take away what you want, and people are going to be like, "Oh, he gave up 8 runs or 7 runs, whatever it was." Down in AAA, he sucks. Like, what's going on? And I'm really not concerned. I'm sure other podcasts are out there very concerned, but I'm really not too concerned about Reid Detmers by any means. Yeah, 7 runs. That's rough, but playing in a really hard ballpark out there that the ball's going to fly out of, and 8 strikeouts, no walks. Fantastic. Great. You move on to the next start. It's I think at this point now it's a mentality thing. And I don't know if sending him to AAA was the right move. I am slightly worried, especially if he continues. I mean, if he strikes out 8 to 10 guys and gives up 5+ runs an outing and doesn't walk anybody, like I'm happy with that. Like that's really good. That's solid in Salt Lake. I'm good with that. So yeah, it would have been nice to see him just go to Arizona and nobody really know what's going on, to be honest. Kind of the Alek Manoah treatment, but we'll continue to wait and see on everything there, but I'm not too worried about it.
1 homer on the fastball, 2 homers on the slider, which is a big concern for
Mhm.
me
Mm,
because that was the pitch that
I'm
he
not.
was not getting swings and misses on in the big leagues. And then 1 homer on the changeup. So
I'm not
the
concerned.
fastball was the velo was a little down yesterday. He was 92.7 for the most part, which is probably better for him, honestly, to be closer to that 92, 94 range instead of trying to live in that 96, 97 range. Um, but I think the slider home runs is a little bit of a thing like, hey, at least it's in the zone. Now we just got to find the right release point with that.
His slider has long been, the key pitch for him. I mean, he lives and dies off that pitch, and when it's wrong, it doesn't work for him. That was some of the issues last year he had as well. It was the slider. It's always been the slider. So if you can fix it, I'm not worried about the 7 runs. I'm worried about what you were talking about, the home runs off the slider. The slider contact. Fix the slider, fix Reid Detmers. Don't fix the slider, don't fix Reid Detmers. So in the meantime, there's a gentleman waiting in the wings, Kaden Dana. And I know Mr. Jared here is quite the fan of Mr. Dana. Jared, tell us all about him, and is it time to see him?
He looks real sharp, especially last night or 2 nights ago. Whenever you're listening to this, 8 innings, gave up a run. I think struck out 10, walked a couple guys. Um, it's hard for me to say he's not ready. However, it's not needed. I'm going to continue to say that bringing up Caden Dana is not needed. You don't need to waste the years of arbitration, years of all that stuff to bring him up right now. And I think that if we do see him get brought up, it's starting to kind of show a little bit of that white flag from Perry saying like, hey, like I feel like I'm on my way out. Like let me pull up another guy and see if I can continue to show that I'm producing down in the minor league levels. And that worries me a little bit. I know we've talked about that in years past with bringing up Shanuel and those type of guys, but man, he looks really, really good. Should be a top 100 prospect. Definitely don't read into that by any means. I know he's top 100 by some standards. But you look at this for the future, and the Angels rotation actually is kind of a little bit fun. Reid Detmers can figure it out. We just talked about him. You got Caden Dana, Chase Silseth. Who else am I missing? Nate, we just talked about this the other night.
Soriano looks pretty good so far as a
Jose
starter as well.
Soriano. It's not where the Angels used to be, where the Angels still don't have an ace. Like let's be very clear about that. The Angels still don't have an ace, but you have a bunch of three starters. Even Patrick Sandoval, like if you can slot all those guys in as number 3 starters, you're a lot better off than what you were in years past. And that's really, really cool to see, especially for a team that didn't produce pitching for the longest time and had troubles there. So I'm not saying that this rotation's gaining a lot of ground, but to go from all 5 starters, where the Angels were a couple of years ago, and Shohei Ohtani being an ace, to now all 3 starters, and you're still looking for an ace. This plays a lot better in the long run. I think you got guys with control, guys with years. You can build around that, and you don't necessarily need to go out and sign. You probably should go get a big name pitcher, and there are going to be some big name pitchers on the market, but you don't need to go out and sign the Tyler Anderson, those type of deals to fill the rotation. You can go sign the minor league deals that are going to be spot starters, that are going to pitch in AAA. That if one of these guys get hurt, you can go get a guy or two. So I know we just talked about this, but Perry has at least a little bit of an idea of what is being formed, and I'm still continuing to be intrigued into this just a little bit. I mean, you look at the young field or that he's created, and then I think we're going to talk draft here in a second, but yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know if it's good enough. That's going to be my biggest thing, but back on to Dana. Would I bring him up right now? You could. Does he need to be brought up right now? Probably not.
Nate?
There's no probably not for me. There's no reason to bring this kid up. Absolutely none. Like this could be a big blow to the organization to bring him up right now. Actually, Kaden Dana is well on his way to being a top 100 prospect, easily, not just barely, like easily a top 100 prospect. He's good enough to maybe even throw him in AAA just to give him a little bit tougher of some scenarios because it is a tough ballpark to pitch in AAA. And then the other thing too, if we wait until next year, like let him prove that he's ready in spring training. If you want to call him up in September, that's fine. Give him a couple outings in September, that's fine. But we're in June and we're already talking about the draft. Like this team is trash. This team is like bringing this kid up is not going to make the Angels a playoff team right now. And so let's wait. Let's give him some more time to develop. He's 20 years old. And if you, like I said, give him an outing or two in September, just kind of get his feet wet, come back spring training, prove that he's a dude. Maybe sign a minor league guy to compete with him. And if he wins the job, he wins the job. And he'll go into the regular season as a top 100 prospect with an opportunity to win Rookie of the Year and give the Angels another draft pick and just really help the Angels continue to collect assets, because calling him up right now and wasting his rookie year on a year where he wouldn't be able to give us any more assets based on draft picks and things like that, it just feels like a waste of time. And like I said, we're already talking about the draft and it's June 8th. So there's no reason to call this guy up to make us 24 games out of first place instead of finishing 28 games out of first place.
Keep him down there as long as you can. That's my view.
This isn't a Dallas McPherson type scenario
No.
where it's like, oh, what are you doing leaving him down there? This isn't that type of scenario. You're okay to leave him down there. He's thrown maybe 100 innings in the minors in his career. Maybe.
But right now, just judging in how things are looking at the major league level, it looks
139.
a whole lot toxic up there. I just let them grow. We rushed all these prospects up all these years. Let them grow down there. Just give them the space to not have to worry about all the things going on. That we've rushed every other prospect for the last 5 years. Why rush this one? Can you guys have a prospect they haven't rushed?
Haven't rushed?
Yeah. In the last 5 years, is there one they have not rushed up to meaning to the majors?
Jordan Adams.
Well, did he deserve to be?
I mean, they didn't. I mean, Bryce Teodosio.
I would say the one guy that you could actually point to who is Logan O'Hoppe. They kind of gave him some time in the minor leagues. Like some people wanted him up right when they traded Brandon Marsh for him, which I thought was crazy. They gave him a little bit of time in the minor leagues before he came up. But yeah, that's probably the last guy that you could really point to. Like, he's probably the only guy in the last 5 years that they didn't really.
I'm talking about guys who are organizational guys, like guys who started and came up through. Because trades, things happen with trades,
no.
But
Jack Kahanowitz would probably be that guy. There you go.
Okay, I can go with Jack. All right, last thing, early draft pick. Draft's coming, and the Angels will have a little bit higher than they normally do. Next year they'll have a lot higher, hopefully. But who you guys thinking lands with them? Where do the Angels go? Nate?
Well, one of my prospects that I really like, he just got hurt about an hour ago. Braden Montgomery got hurt in the Oregon Texas A&M game, hurt his ankle, which I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock. I know he's kind of solidified himself as a top 10 pick from what it looks like. If he's there, that would be someone interesting. Honestly, I have two guys, both are Wake Forest guys. If Nick Kurtz is there, I don't care what position he plays. If Nick Kurtz is there, you got to take him. Probably the second best hitter in this draft, but behind the Oregon State kid, Travis Bonanza. So he's probably the best hitter in this draft. Kurtz is, in my opinion, I think he could be the second best hitter in this draft. And then obviously if I don't think there's any way he's available. Do you think there's any way he's available, Jared?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about Kurtz.
No. Yeah. I think that your second guy, there's a possibility. There's always a possibility.
Okay.
I'll give my answer here in a second. You can keep going.
Yeah. So if he's available, obviously you take the pitcher from Wake Forest.
Chase Burns.
Yeah, Chase Burns. Thank you. So those would be the top two guys on the board for me. I don't think there's any way Burns gets past 3. I think there's a chance Kurtz gets all the way there, and if he's there, that's the guy to go get. I know Jared and I will probably disagree on this, but I'm not in the camp of underslotting in the first round. I think that, and knowing the way the Angels underslot, we talked about this. It's not going to be a complete underslot. It's going to be a couple 100,000, which you can do in later rounds and things like that. So I think Nick Kurtz is the guy. Brain Montgomery would be interesting because I think he's got a really good chance. He's got really good tools and can play all 3 outfield spots with some power. Really good Stanford kid, transferred over to A&M. So there's about 8 guys that are going to be interesting.
Jared.
At the moment, throw everything that the Angels have done out the window. At the moment. I'm not going to give you a name as to who I think the Angels are going to take, because there are 15, 20 names that the Angels might take at the moment. Now, as we get closer to the July 14th, 15th day, whenever the draft is, I'll have a better chance at that. But right now, there are probably 20 names that the Angels might take in that first round, as well as the second round, which is even more so, and in third round. People are already starting to hear names there. I will say at the moment, there is only one guy that I don't believe is going to be there for the Angels. Everybody else, there's a possibility that he is there, and the name that's probably not going to be there is Travis Bazzana, the Oregon State second baseman. That is the guy right now, unless he tears his ACL, has Tommy John, something weird happens, and God, please don't let that happen to him, because he's the best player in this draft. Unless something crazy like that happens to him in the Super Regional or in the World Series, there's no way he's not going in the top 4 picks. Now, there is now another name that might be there for the Angels that everybody's like, oh, and that's Charlie Condon. There is a chance that Charlie Condon may be there for the Angels. Now, a lot of things happen here in the next month, right? There's a lot of, it's not just about pure athletic ability, and let's just throw that out there right now. It's not about the baseball player. It comes down to money and what money means to everything. And we will hear that a lot over the next month. It's Bazzana is probably going to go 1-1. Burns might go 1-1. It's going to come down to money and what the Guardians want to do with that money. So I'm not going to give a name as to who I think the Angels are going to take right now, but I think that everybody is in play who you think might be in play besides Travis Bazzana. And plain simple as that. And we'll continue to talk about this for the next couple of weeks, and things definitely do change. But I mean, it could be anybody, really. Like, it could be Weatherholt, the West Virginia kid. It could be Coglianone. He may be there for him. It could be Chase Burns if he's there. Could be Hagen Smith. Could be Trey Yasavage. I mean, Montgomery, like Nate said. Kurtz may be there. Anybody. Bryce Rayner, the high schooler, may be there. So it's going to come down to money and what the Angels want to do. But throw everything the Angels have done out the window the past couple years. I don't think they're necessarily looking for a quick mover either. They don't have Shohei Ohtani anymore. They're not looking to build around Shohei Ohtani and show him that, oh, hey, we have a farm system. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Now, it doesn't mean they're not going to take this kid and put him straight into Double A. Like, if they get Charlie Condon, put him in Double A and see what he can do, or Kurtz or Coglianone or any of those guys. But there are a lot of names out there right now. So yeah, we'll just wait and see. I'm not going to give a name right now. There are too many names.
Well, if not a name, let me ask you this. Depth-wise, organizational depth-wise, what is the biggest need for the Angels right now in this draft?
Talent. A baseball player that
I'm thinking positional talent.
A baseball player.
Can I say one thing before Jared, for Derek's sake on this? when it comes to the MLB draft for teams, it's way different than the NFL draft. The NFL draft is based for need for the next 2 years, right? Like they're looking at what they need now and what they're going to need next year. MLB draft, like you might not see these guys for 4 or 5 years. So they're not necessarily thinking about what they need right now. I know that's the way the Angels have drafted the last couple of years, but I don't, like Jerry was saying, I think it could be a little different now that Shohei Otani's gone. So don't necessarily think about like, oh, Rengifo could get traded. They're going to need an up the middle guy, so they got to draft up the middle. Or Trout's aging. We need a center fielder to take over for Trout in the next year or two. Like you just really have to take the best player available in your mind that fits your money, because it really just comes down to how much money are you willing to spend in the first, second, third round to make sure all the money fits so you don't go over or you don't go under.
My
You
question is more of a philosophical. Listen.
you can
I'm not a fool to how baseball works with it. My question is more philosophical in terms of the need, because everything's been so weird with this Angels organization now for a decade. And a couple of years ago, they drafted all pitchers and didn't. It went okay. So when you're talking about philosophy right now, what you're talking about talent, what are you looking for to kind of help stabilize the organization at a talent level? You're looking towards pitching, thinking pitching is the the staple that holds it all together, right? If you always have good pitching, you're going to be competitive. What are you looking for organizationally is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about fixing or replacing a player. Does that
yeah
make sense?
yeah. I mean, the Angels. You look at what the Angels have done, and it's been the pure hit tool at the college level. So you can put that in the mix, the pure hit tool. However, you go position by position right now, and I mean, there's a bunch of guys out there right now that you look and it's like, hey, if the Angels draft Nick Kurtz, what can you do with Nolan Shanuel? Because Kurt's probably a decently quick mover. I mean, most guys are moving guys pretty quickly. It's not a 4 or 5 year in the minors. I mean, if they draft a high schooler, sure, but Kurtz, it's like, what do you do with Shanuel? Shanuel can play maybe the outfield. I mean, are you giving up on Shanuel? What does that show, Nolan Shanuel? You go around the diamond, right? Like Hagen Smith, the lefty out of Arkansas. What do you view him as? Is he a starter? Is he going to be a really good, really freaking good reliever? Chase Burns, same thing. You view him as a starter. You view him as a reliever. Is he worth taking? Like, what's the risk on pitchers? Are those guys going to have Tommy Johns? Have they had Tommy Johns before? Is a pitcher worth it right now with this Tommy John epidemic that's going on? You look up the middle, right? Like if you draft a shortstop and he is a better shortstop than Zach Neto, are you willing to move Zach Neto to second base? Sure. I think we've said that a bunch of times. Like if the Angels were to have gotten Corey Seager, like you move Zach Neto to second base and holy crap, like that's a fun middle infield now. If you draft a third baseman, what the hell happens to Anthony Rendon? We draft outfielders. Like, does he need to replace Trout in center field? For me, my philosophy is draft up the middle. Like I want to draft a shortstop, a center fielder. Those guys can move two corners if you need them. However, you look at it and those guys aren't available in this draft early, at least. I expect the Angels to take some shortstops, second, third, fourth round, but early, those guys aren't available. So, like, who's the best guy on your board? That is who I'm taking. And if Charlie Condon is available at 8 for the Angels, that's the best guy on the board for you. You take him and you give him full slot or over slot because that's what Charlie Condon probably deserves. If JJ Weatherholt's the best guy on the board, if Hagen Smith, if Chase Burns, like you trust your guys in the org to put whoever is the best guy on your board on your team. And if it's Nick Kurtz and it shows that you don't trust Nolan Shanuel, then maybe you got to move somebody. And that's part of it. You need to get better at certain positions. So yeah, it's for me, I'm drafting up the middle. Then the first round, I don't think there's too many up the middle guys right now. So it's the best guy on your board at that time for me.
Any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm good. Fun watching the College World Series. Let's keep it going.
Jared, anything else?
No, I got nothing. Let Dana go pitch meaningful games in Rocket City. That's more meaningful than the major league team right now. So send Detmers there for all I care. Meaningful baseball there.
Fair enough. All right, folks, there you have it. Our Saturday edition. We're recording anyways. Have a great one. We'll be back soon in another episode. Take care.